Welcome to the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I'm your host, Lyndsay Dowd. My goal is to help train leaders and sales organizations how to manage and deliver results with empathy, compassion, and kindness. Let's get started. Attention, visionary leaders. Are you ready to elevate your leadership style and create an exceptional workplace that stands out from the crowd? I'm here to introduce you to a game-changing resource that will transform the way you lead and shape your company culture. It's time to embrace the power of top-down culture. This practical guide empowers your leadership for lasting success, helping you create a workplace where everyone thrives. Get top-down culture today, and let's reshape the future of leadership together. Greetings and welcome to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. Rebecca Kinney, otherwise known as Becca, worked in healthcare for 16 years and is a self-proclaimed recovering workaholic. Today, she is a writer and entrepreneur and owns a small business called Cypress Inc. that helps medical companies tell their stories on LinkedIn. In 2018, Becca suffered the unexpected loss of both of her parents, and the grief is something she wanted to turn into inspiration for others. Leaving corporate medical sales in 2021 was a tough call, but Becca has a mission to help professionals truly learn to navigate self-discovery. In January of 2023, she started a newsletter called Unraveled that discusses how, as professionals, we can begin to unwind and start to express ourselves in a way that is relatable and maybe even a bit unpolished to succeed in ways we never thought possible before. Together, she believes we can unravel and become even more successful than ever before. Welcome, Becca. So happy you're here.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. Such an honor.
So welcome. So for those that don't know you, would you kindly give a little more of your background? Tell us your story.
Sure, yeah. So I worked in healthcare for about 16 years, and it started out on the clinical side, working with surgical instrumentation and tied into surgery. And then I moved into the medical sales universe of things because, I'm not one that can stay bored for very long. So I had worked in the sterile processing department and then started talking to people that worked in medical sales. And I was like, oh my gosh, those bros make a lot of money. I want to do that. So when I first started, it was literally just, how can I amplify my career and be a little bit more successful financially? And so I got into medical sales, and along that journey, I just grew a passion to tell my story and to reach new people. And that came through some life experiences and the loss of my parents. And I just knew that I had to do more and reach more people with the message that you can be yourself in a corporate world and you can express who you are uniquely and just be such a blessing in this world. And so I started my own business, and today I work with different healthcare organizations, helping them tell their story on LinkedIn. And I'm working on writing a book, and ultimately just want to love on people and help them grow.
Thanks for sharing that, Becca. That's I have to imagine the journey of losing your parents had to be obviously really difficult. How did that impact your decision making?
Ooh. I'll be very honest with you. When it first happened, it was so tragic. I mean, it was unexpected. So we lost my mom first. We were all on a family vacation, and we had been together for the first time as a family with all the kids and the grandkids for the first time in 7 years. And mom passed away on the last day of the trip. She passed in her sleep. And, we tried to resuscitate her, give her CPR. And my brother is a doctor, and it was a failed attempt. And God was so good in all of it because we were able to get mom out before the kids all woke up. So, we were able to just say, Grammy got sick in her sleep and she's no longer with us. She's in a better place. And so that was like a little bit of fuel to my fire. That tragedy was, oh my gosh, what the hell just happened? And she had been married to my dad for 40 years. So unfortunately, we did mom's funeral. We did all of that. And then my dad passed away 6 days after mom's funeral. A broken heart.
I was just going to say.
Yeah. And
Oh
they do say
man,
people can die of a broken heart.
for sure.
And so dad left us too. And that left me going, oh my gosh, what on earth just happened?
Yeah.
And I had slowly before this kind of started this journey of self-discovery. I had gone to Africa in 2017. So the year before all of this happened, I went to Africa on a mission trip with some doctors. And at that time, I had this like eye-opening experience that said, holy crap, life is so short. What are you doing?
Mm,
And my mom had said for years, I want to do this family vacation. I want all my babies together. I want to do it, everyone in the same place at the same time. And so after I went to Africa and came home, I was like, I hear you, Mom. I see you. Let's make this happen. And so I was like, come hell or high water, I'm getting all my siblings on airplanes and getting their butts to the Oregon coast. And we are going to love up on Mom.
I love it.
And so grateful I did.
But I mean, this is such a good metaphor. I mean, there's so much to say on this, but for me, the pandemic gave me this opportunity to really live intentionally. And I think whenever anybody suffers a major loss like this, it kind of shakes you to your core and reminds you there's more to what you should be doing, and you've got to live with purpose, which is exactly what I think you're doing now. So you want to talk a little bit about Unraveled?
Yeah, I do. So it's pretty funny because after this happened, I was like, I had balls of steel. I was like, okay, nothing's gonna touch me. Nothing can like interrupt this intention and this passion. So at the time, I was in medical sales, and I had a meeting at one of my facilities and went and did an education. And I was like, I'm gonna stop by this bigwig's office today. And mind you, I was in scrubs. I had been crying a lot. So waterproof mascara was failing me. And and everyone's like, you cannot go to his office, Becca, without a meeting. And I was like, okay, but like, what the hell? I'm just gonna try. So I go and I show up at this gentleman's office, and I was like, hey, can I speak with Gary today? And they're like, who are you? And I was like, I'm the rep with, company X, Y, and Z. And I was just hoping to get a few minutes of his time. And they're like, you do not have a meeting. And I was like, well, I just thought I'd give it a shot and swing by. And she's like, I'm sorry, we can't see you today. And I hear from the back, I hear Gary say, who's out there? And they're like, oh, it's some girl named Becca. She's just a rep. And he's like, I have about 10 minutes, bring her on in. And so Gary saw me in his office that day, and I was a hot mess. I actually cried. And this is a VP of supply chain management over an entire healthcare system that we were attempting to get 3 hospitals on board. And I go into his office looking like a hot mess, cried, and the result of it is pretty freaking amazing. He ended up calling me about a month later, and I was actually, this is an overshare, I was using the bathroom when he called, and it was like, oh my gosh, but I thought it was just someone calling from the clinic with a quick question about one of their surgical devices. And he's like, hey, this is Gary calling from this healthcare system. I have the CEO and the CFO and the CNO all here right now. Can you just really quickly review this contract with us and what you're offering? And I was like, absolutely. And just 1 minute, please. And I pause the phone, and I get up, get myself together, and we ended up winning the RFP. And so that was kind of just a step one for me of, look what happens when you just put yourself out there.
Right.
Look what happens when you step into boldness
Mm-hmm.
and unashamedly just go for the freaking gold. What's the worst that can happen? This bro won't see me today.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that journey led me to not only the book that I'm writing today, which is hilarious and very satire and bold, but I stepped into this newsletter that I wrote called Unraveled, where I just truly want to help corporate professionals who tend to get a little bit too uptight start to unpack different areas of who they are deeply so that they can be the best version of themselves and just be awesome.
Oh, you said something so good there. And I teach this LinkedIn workshop called Hone Your Voice with LinkedIn. And that is my effort to really echo what you're doing, because I came from corporate, and corporate was never really enabling us to build our personal brands. They didn't talk about it. If you went on LinkedIn, you were a flight risk. Like that, it was not something that was seen as a good thing. And so what I've tried to impress upon people in the last couple of years that I've been doing this is you need a voice. There is no such thing as job security anymore. There is no loyalty. So you've got to build that voice. And if your voice just says vice president of business development or, senior director of sales or whatever, that's just a title. That's not you. So I love that you focus on personality, and I love that you focus on, bringing some of the unexpected into a persona, into a company's marketing or whatever. So can you talk a little bit about the clients that you work with today and what you do with them?
Yeah. So today I work with about 5 different healthcare organizations. And sometimes I have to take them by the shoulders and shake them a little bit, because I am like, what people truly want to see? They want to see the people behind the business. They want to see your teams. They want to see what makes up your organization more so than here's our product and here's how we can serve you. So I partner with these different healthcare organizations to help them tell their story effectively, whether that's through fun videos of all of the new hires, whether they're blood drives that they're doing, whatever it might be, to try and grab that real component of their business and share that online. And, this actually, I have a perfect example of how this worked out. One of the 5 companies I work with, I was on a call and I was talking to the CEO of the company, and I'm sitting upstairs in my entertainment room, was not planning on having this call. It tends to be a reoccurring theme. These things just happen and you have to be ready. So I'm talking to this gentleman and he's fantastic. I was not even anticipating them being a client at any point. So I'm talking to him and he was so freaking rad. He's talking about his office and the awards and he lives in Nashville, and talking about the music scene and his family and how he grew up in South Africa. And just this individual with so much depth. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to know this man. I want to work for him and with him and alongside him to really harness who this is. And then something happened in our conversation. It was we were just being chill and hanging out. And then all of a sudden he's like, hey, Becca, I need to bring in the CFO on this. We need to talk about making a business decision here. I'm just gonna route him in right now. I'd like you to pitch him exactly what you just pitched me. Let's roll. I'm like, let's roll. Let's do this. I've been in sales for years. It was no thing. So he brought him in. But what happened is that the man that I was just talking to disappeared. He was not all of a sudden this fun loving, cool bro who listened to amazing music and has this cultural dynamic and breadth to him. Disappeared. And he went corporate zombie on me. I went, boom, 2 totally different personalities. And I was like, oh, that was really unfortunate. So I was like, that happens more often than not, especially for those of us like you and I who have been corporate trained, right? Yeah. You go into work mode or presenting mode or CEO mode, and then part of you leaves the room when that happens. And it takes a lot of training and a lot of work to leave that person on the sidelines and just be you, talking to you right now, all of who you are, and just share it. So that's part of what I cover in my newsletter too. Just how do you overcome these things in your life, whether that's grief, whether that's doing business in abnormal circumstances, whatever it might be. We all have everyday issues that come up and knock us on our fucking ass. And we go, what just happened? But we still have to do business and carry on. So like, how do we do that with a little bit of grace and ease and still show up?
It's so true. And this whole podcast is about stories of resilience. So we've all been knocked on our butts. Any guest that's been on this show has had that happen. And I love to tell these stories because it's how you came out of it, how you grew, how you learned that sharing the most vulnerable part of you is your power. And I so appreciate when anybody comes on and shares a story like yours, but the learnings that you've captured are so, so important. So I'm curious about that CEO from South Africa. Were you able to get him to reclaim some of that personality and, share that? Or did he stay his buttoned up self when the CFO is around?
Ooh, that is a great question. After we started doing business together, it always kind of ends up that you're no longer like directly in contact with the CEO. You tend to start then working with the VPs of marketing or operations or a smaller member of the team.
Mm-hmm.
But, I found that I could bring out the Chris in him by showing up after I picked up my daughter from school on our Zoom call in a snapback hat and sweaty gym clothes. And then when I showed up a little less polished, so did he. Mm-hmm. And it was freaking rad. I'm like, so it's actually very funny. One strategy that I use right now, even on LinkedIn, is just showing up exactly how I am. Mm-hmm. Whether that is, I do something called 20-second trunk talk, which is little quick snippets of motivation. And this actually, you'll laugh how this came to be. I told our good friend Claire Davis, who's been another guest on the show with you.
Yes, love Claire.
I told her the story behind it, and she's like, Becca, like, what made you jump into your truck? It was like the back of the car and just start recording a video. And I was like, well, sister, you want to know the real truth? She's like, of course I do. And I was like, well, we had an extended house guest. My husband was in the Army, and he was with us for a very long time, longer than I was wanting it to be. And I was getting so fed up because like I couldn't express myself in my normal home and way. So one day I just went out to the trunk of the car. I was so fed up. I'm like, fuck it. I am going to go share my goodness no matter what. And I jumped in the trunk of the car and I was like, and I'm going to make it quick because I can get wordy sometimes. So like people want little snippets of who you are. And so I jumped in the truck and then it was born.
And it's great. I think I do the YouTube shorts and it's 1 minute and you can say a lot in a minute. So it's pretty impactful. And that's, I found out about how long everyone's attention span is. So when I share those 1 minutes, they get shared a lot, which is pretty darn cool. So I think you're onto something. And I think, this whole concept of, you've got, for the ones listening, you've got tattoos, you've got a nose ring. So like you are authentically you. And I think, I grew up at IBM, both as a child. I mean, my family put in over 105 years at IBM. So I literally grew up there. I spent 23 years working for that company and everybody was really buttoned up. There was incredible pedigree, but over the years, it started to evolve and we went business casual and, it was so much more relaxed than it was as, how I grew up with my father as an IBMer. And I think that relaxation of be yourself became a strength. And I don't think every company is ready for that, but I do think involving something interesting about yourself. You love to cook, or you grow mushrooms, or you're an avid dog lover, or whatever it is. Yeah. Those little nuggets make you relatable. And I think it's so cool that that's what you're doing. So speaking of LinkedIn, let's talk a little bit about LinkedIn and the role that it's had for you, because you've got a great following. And this is obviously where you are with your clients.
Yeah. And I mean, LinkedIn has been a game changer for me. And it was not my intention at first.
No.
I started growing and using the platform about 7 years ago. And what happened is I had gone to an in-service at one of my hospitals and I had to get a babysitter to the house. And leave the house at 4:30 in the morning, and I brought donuts, and I had this like well-curated presentation specific to the facility. And I show up and two sleepy scrub techs are there. And they didn't want to freaking hear anything I had to say. So I actually was losing money that day between gas and babysitter and all the things. And I was just kind of like, what the crap, dude? So I was like, okay, I give this in service, but I'm just going to pop down to the little like storage area, my very first LinkedIn video 7 years ago. And I'm going to record myself just giving like my own take on this education. And I posted it on LinkedIn, and I didn't even know my login at the time. And so I was like, I mean, I hear this platform kind of works. And so I logged in, and I had about 23 people I was connected to. And I think 10 of them were my family members, I mean, like, to be honest. And I posted the video, and it got 23 views. And I was like, you know what? That is 21 more views than I just got in this room. And so I kind of set out on a mission to use the platform and start to educate and share with people exactly what was resonating, or the things that I was learning as I learned them. Even as I grew into an entrepreneur, like, what are my struggles? What are the things that aren't working for me? Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I mean, we know that it's not always corporate's best friend for their employees to use social media. Mm-hmm. And so then that became a bit of a battle between myself and the corporation I work for. But I was given the opportunity to write for different blogs in our industry, different magazines, and then eventually those became paid opportunities. Mm-hmm. And today the clients that I have, I mean, it's grown from 26 people to just over 30,000 people. And the people that I'm connected to today, funniest part, my friend, I don't even talk about my business on LinkedIn. I don't promote it. I don't talk about it. And in fact, I don't even have a website or a landing page, which most people would be like, what? Put the brakes on. Girl, get it together. But every lead I've had has been inbound. And it just comes from me showing up and being who I am on the platform. Hey, here's what helped me grow. Me and my husband went out and we took a Harley ride on Sunday, and it was beautiful. And I live in the Pacific Northwest, and just literally not even talking about my business. And it's been successful. So
it's so cool.
I think if I could give any advice to somebody
else. That was going to be my
question.
What advice would you give?
Like somebody working in corporate that's looking to grow their own personal brand. First of all, check the social media policy so you don't get shit canned. Because I was pretty damn close on that one.
That's changed though too, because I think that the social media policies have really relaxed over the years. And I can remember the time where, my views are my own and, not part of my company's. You had to like state that in your bio. And now I think companies appreciate if you have a good profile and they give you stuff to post. So it's really changed. Right.
Yeah, it has changed. So, I mean, I think though it's just a matter of sharing what it is that's helping you grow as a professional. And it doesn't even have to be what it is that your organization is putting out. Like, I actually challenge people to put less of what their company is doing online and more of who they are. Mm-hmm. And finding that balance to still be professional and still deliver a great message, but be who you are.
Yeah. I love that you talk about that. And I love that you say that, because I think, the words authenticity are like, that word is such a hot one right now. And everybody wants to see an authentic person. And it's very hard for people that are in a corporate landscape to know how to express that. And they can do it on a personal level, no problem. But LinkedIn is, it's for business, it's polished. And if I share that, I have pet rats, or I don't know, it's a bad example. I don't have pet rats, but if they share something odd or left of center or just a little different, what they don't realize is that makes them interesting. It makes you attractive. And, you're not out there peddling your stuff, 30 times a week. You're talking about your life and your experience, and you're winning clients that way. It's really very cool. And I think personality wins the day when it comes to a proper LinkedIn profile now. And I get so sad whenever I see like just a teeny tiny title and like nothing there. I mean, tell the audience, because I know it too. Don't your clients look you up as soon as they get your name?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, everybody gets looked up. So it's crazy for you to think they don't.
Right. Or I even challenge people like Google yourself and see what comes up. And is that like an adequate depiction of who you are? And if it's not, start putting stuff out that it is you.
Yeah.
Because it will end up in the Google feeds and in the searches. And I think it's, even one more tip would be to just speak to the camera or speak to your audience like you're talking to one of your best friends, or like it's a person you're coaching. Like, not everything has to be mind fucking blowing.
No.
Like, it's usually actually the small things.
Yeah.
And maybe even ignore the metrics. Like, everybody is obsessed.
I think people that are in it for the likes are in it for the wrong reason. And you cannot think of it that way. I mean, Leslie Bennett's, who's got a huge following on LinkedIn, she made a post the other day saying her average amount of likes was 37. And I'm like, Leslie's got like 100,000 connections. Like, she's seriously impressive. And she's built an incredible platform for herself, but she doesn't worry about those things. And I think that's such an important piece for anybody that's trying to create content or hone their voice. You can't get bogged down by that stuff.
Right. And just by doing it and taking the actions, like you're gaining progress.
Yeah.
Because, right now, as I work on my book and I work on the things that I want to do in the long run, I don't have it all figured out. So sometimes people could look at my messaging and be like, it's confusing, Becca. What do you actually do? And I'm like, you know what, guys? I'm still figuring it out too. Every day I'm figuring it out. One day at a time, you get closer to where you want to be. And then once you get there, that's probably going to change too.
So you get to work with a lot of different leaders. What are some of the best qualities you've seen in the leaders that you've worked with?
Some of the best qualities I've seen the leaders I work with are really just candidly honest. Very straightforward with their expectations that they have for you, and willing to entertain new ideas, being open to a different outlook, and just willing to hear it out. Like, I think that some of my clients' best successes have been when I can tell a VP, hey, I don't think your idea is great. What do you think of this? And they're like, I think it's a horrible fucking idea, Becca. And I'm like, how about we give it a shot? Can we try? And they're like, sure. I mean, I guess. I said, I promise I'll represent your organization in the right way and in no negative connotation, but like, can we just give it a shot? And when the leaders are open to new ideas, I think that is like delivering Pandora's box of opportunities. They're like, hey, just roll with the vision and create what you're going to. And I think when leaders enable their employees to use their creative capacities and express their ideas, it's so beautiful.
I agree. I think leaders that are curious, they're always going to be better than the ones who think they've been doing it a certain way for 20, 30 years. And why mess with success?
Right.
Everything's evolved around you. It's time to modernize your approach too. So I agree with all of those observations. So what inspires you?
To be honest, I get super inspired just listening to music or going for my long walks. Those are typically when inspiration hits. I live in the Pacific Northwest and it's gorgeous.
So pretty.
So there's trees and mountains and water everywhere. I find what inspires me the most is when I get really, really quiet and I don't consume media before I create it. Meaning that my opinions or my ideas are not swayed or created based off of what I saw from somebody else.
Right.
Or what came truly from me. So it can just be as simple as shutting things down long enough to hear the voice you need to express.
It's like a meditative forest bathing.
Yeah. I mean, really cool. Totally. But it's really hard to get quiet anymore, isn't it?
Yes, it really is, because somebody needs you all the time.
Or all the platforms and all the noise and all the consumption leads to you starting to get kind of confused. Like, what do I want to do? Because look at what Lyndsay's doing. She's got a podcast, she's writing a book, she's doing this. And then we start to like look at everybody else's successes and compare ours.
Right.
Instead of just saying, hey, here's what I got. That's it. It's that simple.
I know. So what would you like your legacy to be?
Ooh, that's a powerful question. I think that I would love my legacy to be, when I am long gone, that people would say, wow, Becca filled my life with so much joy and energy, and she challenged the fuck out of me to be a better human. I would love my legacy to be, oh, yeah, she challenged me to be better.
Love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a great legacy to leave, and you are well on your way, my friend. How do people find you?
On LinkedIn under Rebecca Kinney, and my newsletter Unraveled is on LinkedIn as well.
I love it. Well, you've been a fabulous guest. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. Stay tuned for more. Thanks, Becca. Thanks for listening to Heartbeat for Hire. If you like what you hear, I'd love it if you'd subscribe and leave a 5-star review. To keep the conversation going, you can find me on Insta or at LinkedIn at Lyndsay Dowd, H4H. Or you can reach me at my website, heartbeatforhire.com. Thanks so much. Have a great day.